All right, here we are streaming on Saturday, June 9th. And Justified just won the Kentucky Derby. Crazy stuff. So I'll get a little bit how Mark Taylor had horses of the last Triple Crown win be a significant marker for the Lord and what he's doing. So we'll see. We're going to go over Killing of Uncle Sam here from Cueanon News. Only one person's on right now live, so you're probably listening to this as a recording. That means you have to actually hit subscribe, and then a little bell will come up just to the right of that, and you can toggle that on and off. I've had a lot of questions about this, so I want to show you right now how that works. So if you actually go to YouTube and you have this video or any of my videos, and you hit the subscribe button. So if I just go to any, like I just type in Cueanon, for instance, and it brings up videos on Cueanon. And if I go to any of those videos, here's a big one that is from Alien Scientist, who I don't even know who that is. But if I was going to subscribe and want to see every one of this person's links, I'm going to pause this right now here. I'm giving them an extra view right here. But I just want to make sure everybody knew this. If there's see the subscribe button right here? Once you hit subscribe, sometimes it'll move the screen down a little bit. And see how the bell comes up there? There's a little bell right there. So that is the bell that you have to hit. And if it has a little highlight, so you want to change it to all. Some browsers do it a little differently. It'll be all or some, right? And see how the bell has little markers over it to right and left? That's what you want to get all notifications. If you click it again, you can have occasional or none. If you hit occasional, you'll see those two little markers come off of it, right? So different browsers will do that a little bit differently, whether it's your phone or whatever. But that's how you would do that if you want to see it live. So we're going to go over Justify winning the Kentucky Derby. Woo! And justice is coming. We're going to go over Killing of the Uncle Sam, chapters 7 and 11, and some Cueanon News. I'm going to start with Cueanon News and Justify. So those of you who aren't reading the book with me can kill that. But we'll go over some Cueanon News first after just reviewing Justify winning. That is pretty cool stuff. He wins the Triple Crown, only the 13th horse to ever do it. And or maybe the 13th Triple Crown champion. And I think only 2 in the last 40 years. American Pharaoh, right, did it just in 2015, which is what gave Mark Taylor, who we've been studying here, right, together, he gave him that's when they said he was told to release the Trump prophecy. So he actually released it out at that point in time, and it was a sign that things were going to be happening with American Pharaoh, and there's a whole thing on his website about that if you want to go look at swordrescue.com, swordrescue.com to see about how American Pharaoh was really a big deal about that. This is another article talking about go Justify, right, and Justify wins. The strapping, and he also broke a huge curse that if he hadn't run as a 2-year-old and he run a 3-year-old, it had been almost it's over 100 years, I believe, since a 3-year-old had won the Kentucky Derby. So that curse has something to do with the sun god, and there was no sun out there. It was raining and all that type of stuff. So a couple big things that just might, God might be using evil of this industry to actually be signs, which the way God uses those sometimes. And according to Mark Taylor, he did for American Pharaoh. And if this is the year of justice, then Justify could be that sign. And you can actually go here. I was looking and I was just searching on the word justify. There's a couple of them. Justice, there's a ton, obviously, right? And he talks about us being in the justice phase, right? So if you go to Cueanon.pub and you just type in justice, you'll see a ton of things come up if you can spell better than me. Justice, right? And then there's 28 markers saying that it has the word justice in it. And if I type in justice again, so the way you do that is you go up to upper left, you type in justice to filter down to 28 versus the 1400 post here on Cueanon.pub, and then you go to click again and unfree your text from here and hit Control F usually on most computers, or Command F on a Mac, and type in justice again, and then it'll highlight when I go like this. I don't know why it's not finding. I think, oh, I didn't spell it right again. My typos are getting me. And then it highlights them all. So it's really nice. So you can see the latest one he talked about was May 21st, where he basically said, service in the Justice Department. He's talking about the Justice Department and the justice system. But here's what I want to look at this. What must happen pre-11/11? That's when the parade's going to happen, right? 11/11 provides a strategic marker. Post-midterms, red wave coming, question mark, strength, justice. And he mentions this word quite a bit, equal justice under the law, right? If you look down here, it says Department of Justice, but here he is, outside comms, justice, Q. And look at it, the name of this file he posted was justice.1.jpg, right? And so it's a huge theme that we're in the justice phase. Trust the plan, justice. So this is all over. Next phase will bring justice. Q+. So here's Q+ on April 29th telling us that you are all patriots, right? And let's just read this whole thing. Personal thank you to the board owner, the bakers, the artists, anons who continually dedicate their time and energy to the Great Awakening. You are all patriots. The hard part is coming to an end. The next phase will bring justice. Q+. This is on April 29th, and we've seen more and more stuff coming. Yeah, George Soros is a partial owner of Justify, a very small portion. So I think that's kind of funny that the justice is actually going to be coming down. And that one of the signs he used was a horse that George Soros had a small portion of it. But Kenny Trout is a big believer who owns the majority of that. 70% of the horses, Windstar Farms. And I actually worked for Kenny Trout before he became a billionaire. I was his CIO at Excel Telecom, and and Kenny Trout was my boss. So I know Kenny very well. He was before he was a believer. And so congratulations, Kenny, if you're listening. Awesome to see him win that triple. Obviously, he's not listening right now because he's at the race getting congratulated for his horse. But if he's listening to a recording, is what I meant there. But anyway, Justify wins, and also the jockey Smith actually glorified the Lord. He basically said, "I first want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ." So that is cool stuff happening here, and I think it's a sign. And we are in the justice phase since April 29th, and we're now in a little over a month into this, and amazing things are going to continue to happen as we continue to see justice. Some of that justice is right here. Look at this. Metro Atlanta sex trafficking sting rescues 160 children, one child as young as 3. So this just came out a couple days ago, guys. So this is new stuff hitting hard, right? At the same time that you have Snopes trying to disavow the Tucson thing, right? And by the way, the Tucson thing, I put a link in all my I actually took down my bunker video, and I put a correction there. If you go look at Craig Sawyer, the Tucson thing had a lot of circumstantial evidence, but there's a lot of fake news coming out of there. There wasn't a bloody knife. There wasn't bones found that were real close. They were like 50 miles away. Craig Sawyer has a new video that I'll link to below in this, clearly showing that the Tucson thing we need to mellow out on. I was really afraid of that. You probably saw me the last couple of videos go softer on that because it just got way overblown in my opinion. And now it's been verified by the guy who actually did the first video and who's actually out looking for pedophilia rings, etc., that particular site has been investigated like 8 times. So we need to be a little careful about that, okay? All right. Okay, here we go. Here's Lionel actually talking about the same thing. Pedogate is real. It is occurring and is going on under our very nose of American bought and sold corporate media. Listen to the words of Sheriff Gaddy Judd. Listen to specifically what he says. Listen to the entire piece and try to control your anger. It's just a little 2-minute video. I'd recommend a little 1-minute video. I will connect to this. It's worth it. He basically says this is not about girls that are making themselves to look young, right, or 17 and a half, and this is like 3-year-olds and guys, literally males raping babies in diapers, right, type really sick stuff. And so and you'll hear that here. So the fact is we have got to put an end to this, and the only way we're going to put an end to this is we got to end the criminals in our government. the deep state that is the shadow government needs to be eliminated. And that's exactly what Trump's doing with the plan here. That's what Q's talking about. There's a lot of people that are trying to have disinformation on QAnon. Again, you study enough evidence, you know it's overwhelming, right? So I'm not going to spend a lot of time debunking people that don't believe in Q. It's very clear he's working with Trump. If Trump didn't want Q around, he would take one tweet to wipe Q out, right? Just say QAnon is fake. That's all he has to do. Boom. And he would do that if he thought this was disruptive. This has woken a ton of people up. There's way too much evidence, like the fire engines, and I think I have a full, huge list that I was about ready to do a video on. It's just going to take a lot of time to go find all that information and pull it all together. And I already saw that Katie G did a great job on it. So did Deception Bites. So those other QTubers that have Q proofs out that are just overwhelming amount of evidence, right? So here we go. Great Awakening. Colbert calls Pizzagate alt-right conspiracy. Conspiracy no more. I can't wait to see those guys walk down the street once the veil is finally lifted. Sickos. So anyway, you can... And that's exactly why I don't think the mass arrests are going to happen until most of the people realize how evil these people are. And most people don't know that right now. We do have a good following, as you know, on, if I flip back over here to the Great Awakening, it's 30,216, right? So we've crossed 30,000, but that's a small number compared to all of America, obviously, right? Extremely small number. And even compared to the Donald, that a lot of people supporting Donald Trump, it's like 600,000 on the Donald subreddit, right? So we still got a lot of work to do here. So says, showbiz media shill Stephen Colbert sits with alleged child molester John Podesta, who hosted a fundraiser for Stephen's sister in 2013. But don't worry, there's no conflict of interest. Pizzagate is just an alt-right conspiracy theory. Stephen said so on television. Go back to bed, America. All right, so kind of obviously being very sarcastic there. Here's Anthony Merman, another tweet somebody saw that he did back on. See if I can see the date on this. Doesn't really give the date, darn it. They didn't put that in there. But it basically showed, I am in no way an HRC fan. I've been on the receiving end of her operative's wrath, and it ain't fun. Oh, there it is, 5-2. And so this is obviously after she lost, and I think he was a big fan before then. I think he's the deep state. He was a deep state shill. I know his girlfriend was actually talking about Harvey Weinstein raping her. So who knows why he got knocked off? But there was even right here for a while. A French prosecutor said there was a sign of foul play in the suicide of Anthony Bourdain. But then they talked about corrected or something. So I'm not sure if has the MSM ever been in such a state of chaos as this weekend. It's like they are throwing all kinds of S out there because they have nothing better to cover. Well, not in line with Operation Mockingbird agenda. Right. So anyway, that's I'm not sure if that has been updated or not, but obviously a lot of things going on for these murders. Here's I think Andy Spade, I think is the daughter of Kate Spade, and there's some really just weird things on her Instagram. I'm not going to really dig into that. Symbolism will be their downfall. These people are sick. So a lot of really weird stuff, like lying in a street and acting like she's drowning in a pool, and all kinds of really weird symbolism here on her Instagram. Probably confirming more that there's some of these wealthy Hollywood people or designers just get into this criminal elite camp, and it just it's creepy, right? Like hanging from doorknob with a red scarves, creepy. I'm not going to read through this. You can go look at it, but there's a whole list of other people that died on a supposed doorknob with a scarf. This guy here in the first comment gives even more examples of this. How do you hang yourself with a simple scarf on a doorknob, right? So that is very fishy. And then the fact that guy had a mouse or a rat face wearing on, her husband did the next few days. It's like, wow, symbolism coming from there. Here's Rand Paul. Obama administration sought to criminally entrap Trump campaign. I think everybody knows that now, that's not blinded by the fake news media, right? This is a little bit more emphasis from what I gave you last time. President Trump likely to sign a bill ending the federal ban on marijuana. Talked about that a little last time. Hopefully they'll put more police officers in the jail system toward more violent crimes and also drugs that actually are addicting. Opioids are 10 times worse as far as deaths than marijuana. If they thought they were going to lecture Trump on the glories of free trade, they got a rude awakening. He came to a gunfight armed with a stealth bomber, one U.S. official told Breitbart News. So article here, in fact, I think I have it right here, talking about how Trump, America will no longer be piggy bank that everyone is robbing. Isn't that truth? That can be a wonderful thing. So that's the Q News I have right now. And now I'm going to jump in to the chapters 3 through 6 of Killing of Uncle Sam. Intriguing to see how the New World Order actually started. I'm going to actually just quickly review the first 6 chapters just by, this guy named Cecil Rhodes. So for those of you who didn't see those other 2 videos, in 1876, he basically was a rich noble, and he had this dream right after he became a Masonic. He got to become a light bearer, right? So he had this dream about the New World Order, right? Obviously coming from a false religion of Freemasonry that teaches a God that's not the God of the Bible. And then he became a racist. He thought the English race was better than everybody else. Chapter 2 really got into African hellhole, where he basically talked about where he had all these diamonds, got very wealthy. Then he came back to Oxford, really got into the John Ruskin methodology, which is really that the best breed is noble blood, is England. Again, racism, or what would you call that? Purist, I'm better than everybody else attitude. And so he really wanted to do this New World Order. It became a big passion of his. He started sharing it with everybody. And when he saw a ghost and thought he was going to die, so he really pushed it. At Kimberley Club in South Africa is when he met with a bunch of people and started giving the reins to Shippard. And he met Rothschild when one of his banks burned to the ground, and he took a loan out. And then you had the combination of this evil banking empire, criminal empire of the Rothschilds, merging with this vision of the New World Order coming from Cecil Rhodes. You've heard of Rhodes scholarships. They give scholarships to Oxford all the time, right? And then Wealth and Stealth, it talks about how the Rothschilds stole and lied to get their wealth, and basically screwing people to get in control of the Bank of England. And then they tried to do the same thing in America. Jefferson fought them. The War of 1812 was caused partially because Rothschild said, if you don't give us a bank in America, we're gonna cause war. And sure enough, it happened. Eventually, they got control of our bank again with the Second National Bank, right? Jackson fought him and then got him out again, but then several things happened later. They came back, right? So Rothschild just kept pushing and doing everything they could to get control of our banking system in the U.S. And then the alliance came between Rothschild and Rhodes, and they looked at the history of the Jesuit order, where they really were able to push back the Protestant movement quickly by just basically training people and sending them all over the place. Right, and then riches beyond measure. So you're gonna go, okay. So, all right. So riches beyond measure. Here, that he ended up owning 90% of the world's diamond trade, and then he started buying everything else. Right, the poor Boers. That he was buying a bunch of land, and he actually dug and found gold on them and all kinds of different minerals throughout South Africa. He ended up ordering almost all of South Africa, getting charters from England because of his relationship with Rhodes, etc. With the Rothschilds, and then he ends up getting. They start getting into the cult extremely heavily, right? And they start these house meetings in England as well as South Africa, and they started this thing called the Society of the Elect, and they really believed in really the occult. This is really looking at it's called Theosophy right here, and they basically ended up worshiping Satan. So now you have the Rothschilds and the actual New World Order of Cecil Rhodes merging with the occult. basically. It's kind of scary things when you look at it. Then they ended up, the Dutch in South Africa, the Boers, they ended up literally purposely doing a war and trying to kill them. They were protected by German guns. Long story, but in the end, you ended up getting, they ended up having a big war that was funded by both sides of the Rothschilds. Just like they did in getting control of the banking system in Europe, they funded both the Napoleon as well as the English side, and that's how they ended up and getting control of the English bank. Now they started doing it in South Africa as well. And they actually, a lot of these people, one thing that Cecil did is he said, hey, let's not get married so we won't be distracted from this goal of getting the New World Order. And guess what? They got into homosexuality. They got into literally with boys, what they call pederast, right? And that is basically pedophilia with boys. So that whole young boy symbol and all that stuff started way back here in the late in the 1800s. At least when it's related to the New World Order, right? What I'm talking about. 1895, that's when they did the Jameson raid, where they actually tried to kill all the Boers with the new machine guns that the Rothschilds funded. The Boers actually won that one. Somehow, Germany said some things, and they got one of the leaders of Germany made a lot of the English mad, and they used the Mockingbird media to propaganda and get hatred for Germany. It was a lot of why the reason World War I happened was the hatred of Germany that the propaganda media created. And they basically made that raid, which was completely illegal. He actually went to jail for 18 months, and they lionize it like he's awesome. So because the Mockingbird media convinced the public that this Jameson guy, who was a criminal, basically was a hero. It was just crazy. So anyway, so in chapter 6, we got into so little done, much to do, and that's when Rhodes dies. But this time he has got the New World Order vision and all the Rothschilds and a ton of elite, that wealthy, influential people worldwide. And they start giving these in his funeral, even though this guy was a complete drunkard, he killed supposedly the African laborers as well as had sex with young boys in them, had boys living with him all the time, and it was an evil man. But basically they celebrated him like he was a hero, just really scary. And all these people, all these elites that have started involving this round table from America and from South Africa, they all ended up being part of the Society of the Elect, or the Round Table, and ended up glorifying Rhodes, including the Rhodes scholarships, which they started giving tons away to, especially to Americans wanting to influence them to understand the New World Order, the same brainwashing that he got in Oxford. So I'll tell you what, after the more I've studied this, the Rhodes Scholars and Oxford is evil stuff. It's where the New World Order satanic teachings come from, and noble blood of Europe is better than everybody else, right? Or Anglo-Saxon, and so basically then there's the focus came on the conquest of America, and that's where and that was part 1 of the book, right? It was 6 chapters. Now we're going to go over the next 3 chapters, which is actually the new world, and then we got converting Carnegie. So they focused on the richest man in the world. It's this vertically integrated steel business, right? It was kind of the prototype for the new industrial corporation, right? And in 1883, Carnegie met with a British philosopher, Herbert Spencer, and convinced Carnegie there was no supernatural, and yet he needed to believe in macroevolution. I use the word macro here. The book didn't, because I've studied this a lot. Microevolution versus macroevolution. So basically, to make a long story short, and a lot of you won't believe me right now until I start showing you some of this evidence, but Darwin and macroevolution is a complete farce, has no evidence for it, and I can show you massive evidence against it, okay? We'll get into that at a later time. But it's basically anti-God, anti-biblical, and now you can see they convinced Andrew Carnegie, who pretty much was a Christian man as he was becoming wealthy, has turned away from it. Spencer introduced Carnegie to Matthew Arnold, an agnostic, and he convinced Carnegie that God was unintelligible and unverifiable. So basically, he lost his faith. And then Rosebery and Steed. And this is where Carnegie visits London. He starts hanging out with this British ruling elite, including the 5th Earl of Rosebery, right? And they were son-in-law of Natty Rothschild, right? They talked about Natty Rothschild. We were studying that in earlier chapters. Members of the Rhodes Society of the Elect. Rosebery visited the U.S. in spring of 1883 and spent time with Carnegie touring via railroads, right? So now you've got this guy, Rosebery, related to the Rothschilds, now spending time with Carnegie. In the fall of 1883, Carnegie met Steed, and he's that journalist we talked about. He's a very deep into the secret arts and occultists. He's a journalist, big Mockingbird media guy from the late 1800s, right? And so he basically tried to get Carnegie's favor with his politics and flattering him. And between Rosebery and Steed, they basically got him in the New World Order. They basically talked about Rhodes' vision of the Great Britain, the U.S. being reunited. So you can see the history of this. Rhodes all the way from South Africa, merging with Rothschilds. They they get control over the Bank of England. They get control over the banks in America. They go look at now into Carnegie in America. They knew that was going to be a real key for them to get the richest man in America on board. And so in 1886, he actually wrote about the British-American Union will surely happen. He believed it would establish universal peace. So this is how Satan works, right? He gives you false hope, light, right? Here, let's go make universal peace. I know if America and Britain were combined and you had the only Anglo-Saxon leaders, you're all of a sudden going to have universal peace. No, that's not what God's plan is. Sorry. American supremacy. The only problem is Carnegie thought that America was better than and exceeded England in power and wealth, which it did then. And so Steed accepted Carnegie's American supremacy and actually went and presented it to Cecil Rhodes before he had died right here. And then Rhodes agreed that, hey, if you can't secure it any other way, we'll do that. We just need to get America and Britain back together for the New World Order to happen. And Carnegie and Rhodes never met, but they are very similar. They are both Freemasons. I mean, Carnegie had a massive collection of Scottish poet Robert Burns, an ardent Freemason. They were both agnostic. They were both evolutionists, believed in Darwinism versus God's creation. And they believed in survival of the fittest, both interested in the cult. And by the way, survival of the fittest is complete circular reasons. It's like who survived? The fittest. Who's the fittest? The ones that survived. Well, who survived? The fittest. Well, who's the fittest? Those who survived. There's no logic. Of course, it's 100% fact, of course, but there's no power in survival of the fittest. It's just what happens, and so it's a complete fallacy as far as a power of any sort. And neo-Darwinism is down to only mutations, which are genetic mistakes. So genetic mistakes and circular reasoning is what macroevolution is about now. It's false, and there's tons of evidence against it. So here is the Carnegie as a young man was a Swedenborgian, ties to that same religion that was a total cult-oriented Eastern mythology type stuff. Both delivered in both these guys, both Carnegie, right, the American richest person, and Rhodes, this person that started the New World Order back in Africa. They both were socialists despite their wealth. With Carnegie even saying socialism would someday rule the world. Is that just crazy? And both had ties to the House of Rothschild, obviously, because Carnegie was still financed largely by the European Rothschilds. So their gospel really kind of turned to a gospel of wealth. And so Carnegie in 1889 talked about a cadre of millionaires should preside over the government. So now not only is it just Englishmen it should be the wealthy Anglo-Saxon should be over all these people. The majority of the poor would need to benefit from the rich since they had evolved into serviceable drones. In exchange for the rich beneficiaries, men of means would have the right to determine public policy. Look at this. This is the first part of a shadow government raising its head. The blueprint for a shadow government to rule America. So here's what Carnegie started believing in, part of this whole round table and all these secret groups now of these wealthy people. Now it's all through America. Prince of Peace. Carnegie sold his steel company to J.P. Morgan for $480 million, and Steed persuaded Carnegie to use $40 million in today's money to construct the Peace Palace. And it was a house, a permanent court of arbitration to settle disputes between nations. Look at that, the founding of the United Nations right here, back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. You have this new $40 million Andrew Carnegie investment going into this, supposedly to bring about the complete banishment of war. Yeah, so it's got this great title. We're going to get rid of war. Look what the New World Order has done to create more war. First attempt to dissolve national sovereignty, right? Carnegie calls this new palace the most holy building in the world. And again, guys, I'm just going to back up for just a second to come back here. We're talking about the killing. That's called the killing of Uncle Sam. This is the title. Here, I should have brought my book up. I left it down there as I was summarizing it. But it's an awesome book. Chapters are small and quick reads, and so you can catch up really quick if you want to get the book. I'd recommend it highly because it's got notes all over the place. Very accurate book to really talk about where the New World Order came from. Right? Now, here's Carnegie then created the League of Peace or League of Nations. Look at that, with an international police force. An international police force. This is where it started. In 1907, he wrote an article in Outlook magazine that talked about a League of Nations. So 1907 is when all this crap started. To achieve this, he felt he needed to have control of America's education and political institutions. This is when the whole takeover of our academia happened. Our whole educational systems. Not only the politics being controlled by the money of the wealthy, but also the American education system. And unfortunately, the American wealthy, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, now, not them, but Wall Street as well as the Rothschilds and this New World Order Cecil Rhodes from South Africa, right? All three of those came together to basically be this shadow secret government that were worshiping Satan. So this is where it was coming from. And I think the Rothschilds gave a loan to the Vatican in the 1830s, and that started getting them involved. So this whole merger, when the Rothschilds came in, they also brought some of the Vatican, obviously the corrupt part of the Vatican, not all of them. Only could be achieved with a massive cash from charitable foundations. So here comes the Clinton, the model for the Clinton Foundation, right? This charitable foundations, massive cash. He knew in order to control the education and control politics, he had to have charitable and massive cash. And the institution would become reliant on the foundations. They want the institutions of politics and education to be reliant on them and these foundations. And thereby the founders would control their operations. And in 1910, Carnegie created CEIP, Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. See how nice that sounds? And it was actually in the swamp, D.C., and included 28 trustees, many former politicians. Look at this. So this foundation, this CEIP, was senators and secretary of states and many former university leaders. It was the shadow government. So the shadow government officially was created in 1910 with the CEIP, Carnegie Endowment of International Peace, for international peace. That's where it was started. And CEIP has close ties to J.P. Morgan, where big business became key leaders in SIA. So now again, you're not only controlling the academia and controlling politics, you're doing that through all these wealthy people as well. That's where Wall Street and all the money of these foundations start controlling everything. So we have the intersection of Wall Street with former politicians and former academia leaders. All while the Wall Street leaders were under control of the Rothschilds. Crazy. That was chapter 7. Get into chapter 8, which was called The Rise of the Foundations. And this is what's just crazy. The Rise of the Foundations. I'm just going to bold that real quick. So knowing the rise of global government required social engineering, the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, and here's a new thing, CFAT. Oh my goodness, a foundation for the advancement of teaching. It included funding of pensions and endowments if they prescribed to the scholarship standards and entrance requirements. So by 1909, CFAT basically took over the national unofficial accrediting agencies for colleges and universities. Not even elected officials, non-elected shadow government through a foundation took over the standards for our college and education. Thus, they had the power of the curriculum, right, overseeing the faculty to support, to supervise the actions. So they actually could supervise the actions of all the universities. If you want funding, we're in charge, not the government. So outside government agency foundation controlling all our standards. Since Carnegie was an avid socialist, right? An agnostic and a globalist and this is a quote, by the way, and this was supposed to be avid. So you can see here, let's read this quote because it's important. Since Carnegie was an avid socialist, an agnostic, a globalist, and it was something to do with the Rhodes Society. He was basically part of the Rhodes Society, right? A member. The universities throughout America, so basically, because he was all those things, the universities throughout America began to reflect his ideology and beliefs. Carnegie was seeking control of the American political and educational system to further the New World Order. So I was not aware that Carnegie was so involved, but his foundations were key. And they called this Sword of Damocles. And this Sword of Damocles is basically that the CFAT, this foundation of Carnegie for teaching, right, academia and teaching, under funding forced compliance. Make sure I have that CFAT. It's advancement of teaching. It forced compliance, right, in order to receive massive access to the funding. And the CFAT created mandatory college courses, including anthropology, comparative religions, and social science, and all those courses that they spouted out had to teach relatively of culture and ideas. Relativity, that's right. So there's no real truth, it's relative, right? The focus was on getting students to abandon an isolationist stance that their fathers and forefathers had. So basically what freed us from Britain, they put right back in there to say, no, you can't think like that. And you can't, and religion's a farce, right? People complained, like in June 1914, when the New York Board of Education stated that Mr. Carnegie's efforts are crushing individuality out of American colleges and lessening the contributions to public price. Especially affected were the smaller Samaritan colleges and the most religious colleges, right? They had to succumb to Carnegie if they wanted funding, and most gave up their independence and decided to forsake the faith of our fathers. I think you know that these are all my little notes. Like I summarized 5 paragraphs into a couple sentences for you guys, right? But it's worth a read. Believe me. You got to get the book if you really want to learn about the New World Order. Great wealth was used to buy the abandonment of religion. This is so key. They're Satan worshipers. They can't have people believe in the Bible. So they use our education system and these foundations to put all this stuff in to get people off of believing in their faith, right? Ernest Victor Hollis, the chief of the college administrator of the U.S. Department of Education, mentioned that this was resulting in a system of conform or no grant. So the college systems couldn't even really, if they wanted money, they had to conform. And therefore, most all college and university administrators and their faculties were included, to conform in order to in order to bask in the stream of millions of dollars. So this is sad, guys. The foundations took over our entire educational system and started controlling politics. And General Education Board, John D. Rockefeller, also supported the New World Order and congratulated Carnegie. So in 1905, he funded the GEB. So not only do we have the Carnegie CFAP, right? We have now the CFAP. We have now the GEB, the General Education Board, for $129 million. See, the government couldn't compete with all this money of these elites. GEB was a racist and focused black on vocational training, believing they were intellectually inferior to whites. So we have racism all over through these elites. Standard education. So the GEB worked together with CFAT, the Carnegie Foundation, with this Rockefeller Foundation, right, for standard curriculum and standardized textbooks. So here we go. We got standardized. You have to teach this, and you have to teach. Not only do you teach the subject, here's what you teach about that subject. It's all relative. There's no God, etc. All happening back in early 1900s. Right? In 1914, the newly formed National Education Association passed a resolution that basically condemned all this crap. We review with alarm the activity of the Carnegie and Rockefeller Foundations, agencies not in any way responsible for the people, in their efforts to control the policies of our state educational institutions, to fashion after their conception, and to standardize our course and study, and to surround the institutions with conditions with menace, turn academic freedom, and defeat the primary purpose of democracy, as heretofore preserved, inviolate, what is that word? Inviolate in our common schools, normal schools, and universities. So basically, obviously, they're just condemning this, saying that it's basically not a democracy. You have the rich people saying this is what you have to learn. This is what you have to teach. And it's the elites that are satanic pedophiles. And I'm not saying Carnegie was. I'm not sure. I haven't seen much about that. But we know that the Rothschilds and the Cecil Rhodes and a lot of the people in these select societies were. And so how scary that they were telling us what we had to do. Now, foundation schemes. In 1913, the Rockefeller Foundation was created with the general statement to promote the well-being of mankind throughout the world, giving it a carte blanche control because it's so general, right? And they put $82.8 million into this Rockefeller Wealth Fund, and so the foundation was used for lobbying too. So to help the Rockefellers' business. So this comes that lobbying. Now you've got not only I control the education, I control the politics, and now I can throw these lobbying in to get what I want with the lobbying, right? That's why we have to have reform in the lobbyists, right? And I know Trump's after that, and so. Like, for instance, they started donating to American Petroleum Institution, a trade organization for lobbying for tariffs, which was going to actually help them actually do all this illegal stuff. I mean, basically make more money because of the tariffs and for their business on oil and stuff like that Rockefeller was involved in. Now, junior indoctrination. Now, John D. Rockefeller Jr. was a president of the foundation of Carnegie, right? And he worked with Junior to shed the religious beliefs, right? So Carnegie, who now, the English people talked him out of becoming a believer and destroyed his faith, he went and destroys Junior Rockefeller's religious beliefs. And so you can see when God comes out of your life, sin just comes in. And it's just sad what this New World Order is based on. Junior even spoke to a Bible class in the Fifth Avenue Baptist Church in New York, basically saying that if you have the moral spirit of Jesus, you would go to heaven, even if you didn't practice any of Christianity at all. Now, you don't have to have faith in Jesus. You just have to have the moral spirit of Jesus. Completely incorrect theology, false teachings. And they started rewriting history. Junior and Carnegie split areas where Carnegie Endowment focused on international education and Rockefeller started on the national education. And they basically started rewriting American history because they agreed they needed to condition you. They need to condition you and your student and your sons and daughters who go to school. And people that needed to drastically rewrite American history. And England became the mother country who loved America's sons and daughters. Britain was no longer tyrants and the main cause of the War of 1812. The contribution of Germans to building America was downplayed. Listen to this. German was banned from school curriculum, and music of German. I'm sorry. That's the music compilators or whatever. The people that create music was eliminated. You couldn't even play German music. Those who resisted were fired and forced to silence. So here they are. That comes back to the racism piece of this, rewriting our history books, denying. It's even worse now, as you know, as they make it all politically correct. Denying Christ. The foundation's activities were not curtailed, let alone any attempts to abolish. They used these tax-exempt organizations to pursue the New World Order, including a one-world religion. They funded the ICM, the Inter-Church Movement, teaching higher criticism, which is completely false, by the way, with stripped all the supernatural events, the very thing that makes God's word, in the Bible, including the virgin birth, including any miracles, including the resurrection. The resurrection, it's like, I can't remember what verse it is, but it talks about if the resurrection is not true, if Christ did not die, then our preaching is in vain, right? It's the very essence of the gospel. And this guy, that false Christian here named Reverend Fosdick, who is a dick, had influence over Junior to the point of even teaching that Jesus did not perform an act of atonement on the cross. They believed this new religion could unite all of mankind. Yeah, so basically if you distort the Bible completely and teach a totally false gospel, you're going to unite mankind. Right, wrong. In the sermon Fosdick delivered, Shall the Fundamentalists Win?, where he stated that insisting that the supernatural aspects of Jesus was intolerant. Where have we heard intolerant from before? Right? That's what the left, the socialists do. It's intolerant. So the truth is intolerant, is what this is saying. The truth that Jesus died for our sins, the truth that he was God in flesh, the truth that he was a virgin birth, the truth that he did all those miracles, that's intolerant. So a false teacher here, completely false teacher Fosdick, is a big part of the crap we have right now in our society. Junior came to the defense and funded distribution of his sermon to ministries and seminaries throughout the country, and got him a new job in the Riverside Church in Manhattan that was constructed by Rockefeller Foundation for $4 million. So Rockefeller builds a church that teaches false things. And then Junior stated a policy only funding seminars that higher criticism, thus debunking the New Testament. And so basically the seminaries, all the new seminaries that these foundations funded, taught false doctrine, completely higher criticism, false doctrine, no virgin birth, no. So this unleashed the American people a new breed of minister who did not even believe in the resurrection or the divinity of Jesus. Scary stuff. Last chapter, pretty short one here, but we'll go over chapter 9. You guys are leaving? Hey, I got to give Josh's girlfriend a quick hug. Just 1 second. Give me 10 seconds. All right, God bless you. Thank you. Good luck in Chicago. All right, guys. So here we go. Chapter 9, the new American pilgrims. Let's talk about creating a society, secret society in America was left to J.P. Morgan. In 1854, the Morgan Bank was in London, so he already had relationships, obviously, there. Rothschild bailed Morgan out after a 1857 crash. So Rothschilds basically gave Morgan unlimited funding to drive Western expansion. So J.P. Morgan and Rothschild were like this between London and America, right, or England and America. In 1879, Cornelius Vanderbilt. Where have you heard that name before? Who is a descendant of that? Anderson Cooper. CIA, the CIA intern, Anderson Cooper is a descendant of Cornelius Vanderbilt, right? And so Cornelius Vanderbilt was basically one of these elite secret society, Satan worshiping people. In 1879, Cornelius Vanderbilt New York Central Railroad was funded by J.P. Morgan, and they gave preferential shipping rates to Rockefeller, helping Standard Oil monopoly. New cartel of Morgan, Rockefeller, Carnegie. So basically a huge cartel. You couldn't even really talk about these guys separately. J.P. Morgan, Rockefellers, and the Carnegies were just mixed in, including the Vanderbilts here, right? It's just an ugly cartel where they give preferential treatment to each other. So other businesses couldn't succeed, right? J.P. Morgan was a Freemason and a practitioner of the occult. Raised in England, he consulted regularly famed fortune teller, this Evangeline Adams, and studied ancient mystery religions. So that's why J.P. Morgan fit right into this, because he was into the occult as well. And in 1903, Morgan established the American chapter of the Pilgrim Society, right, in New York. Purpose was to further the Anglo-American Union. Again, a bunch of racism going on here, or Puritan, whatever you want to call it. Included Cornelius Vanderbilt. So Vanderbilt was in this Pilgrim Society, Anderson Cooper descendant. The London headquarters was set up as a spin-off, and some of you might know, Anderson Cooper is one of the main CNN guys, right? So journalists, so-called journalists. He's actually a mouthpiece of propaganda that he gets at 4 a.m. every day from the New World Order. That's Operation Mockingbird in action. The London headquarters was set up as a spin-off of the Society of the Elect, right? Cecil Rhodes started all the way back in South Africa and catered to the rich and influential, right? So they just got these rich people and they put them through Oxford and they sent them, and it was funny, in the last videos I talked about this, but they sent them to New Zealand and sent them to Australia, sent them to Canada, sent them to England, and obviously a ton to America. That's the Five Eyes. So they infiltrated the secret society through the Five Eyes countries. The Secret Pilgrim Society had key positions in the Carnegie and Rockefeller Foundations, the League of Nations, and the Council of Foreign Relations, and were controlled by the Rothschild money cartel. In 1910, many of the pilgrims took a trip to Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia to plan the formation of what? The Federal Reserve System. So this whole New World Order, Rothschilds, Rhodes scholarships, Oxford, sending everybody to the Five Eyes, satanic, worshiping, elect cult, basically started taking over the Fed and ended up taking over the Federal Reserve. And they started the thinking about that in 1910. Clandestine society. The pilgrims from New York and London, including William Lyon Mackenzie King, the Premier of Canada, visited each other's clubs between London and the United States, right? And shared their efforts to create the New World Order, the NWO. Secret meetings, no guests allowed. A pilgrim, Irving T. Bush, haven't said if that's related to our Bushes, spent $20 million funding the Bush House in downtown London. And a statue had two nearly naked men with two swords. Actually, sorry guys, I just do have some typos here that I obviously got. With one saying lions and the other saying eagles, with one inscription to the friendship of the English-speaking peoples. Obviously, they think they're better than everybody else. And we're almost done here. Public seem to have no interest in the Pilgrim Society, even with so many famous people as members, including the founder of Time Magazine, Henry Kissinger, presidents of CBS, David Rockefeller, and many others. And so these secret societies just started taking over Mockingbird media, right? Media everywhere, as well as our academia, control of politics with lobbyists, and they're all Satan-worshiping pedophiles, most of them. Scary stuff that they're the ones telling us how to educate our kids, telling us what classes they have to take and exactly what to teach them. That's why evolution is taught, because they want to teach that God didn't create people. America's Roundtable. In 1912, the Pilgrim Society created an American Roundtable, expanding members to many heads of universities and authors and other influential elites. So they just started expanding as they get this Pilgrim Society and the American Roundtable of these secret societies, all dabbling in the cult, and basically trying to get every wealthy, influential person brainwashed through Oxford or other means to become part of the society. And that's chapters all the way through chapter 9 of this book. And we're almost through. We've got 2 more chapters to get through to the end of this part 2. And I can tell you what, guys, I talked a lot about evolution. I don't have time to drain this tonight because I'm going to go out with my wife. But I have a FISH acronym, or acrostic, they often call it, and about some of my favorite evidence against the macroevolution of Darwinism, which is completely false. And it's basically fossil evidence, intelligent design, the second law of thermodynamics, and the history of the missing link, which are frauds. I'll go over this later in the next video when I go over chapters 10 and 11, right? Go over and finish up part 2. But it's there's tons of evidence against macroevolution. Microevolution is true. Dogs between a poodle and a Great Dane, right? That within your species, right? And you've got to be careful how they define species. Sometimes they define it too tight. But within what God calls kinds, there's been no evidence of any kinds going between each other. It's all trait evidence. Oh yeah, a whale, maybe he could have got this little bone here and started walking on land. There's no all the bone evidence that Darwin was expecting to see didn't happen. And there's thousands of other examples I would give you as I've studied this for years because I was an evolutionist before I started studying the Bible and found the Lord and started questioning my old beliefs. And I did detailed study on this. And bottom line is that evolution leads people away from God. And and anyway, that's we're going to wrap it up there, guys. I don't have time for a prophecy. I got to get out on the date with the wife. But I just wanted to say thank you all and wrap this up with justify wins. I should probably talk to you guys just for a couple minutes because I feel bad when I don't get to talk to you the whole time. So let me just say hi to Lily and SS and Felicia and Ava and Bonnie. Sick Pedophile Club hid that for you, Lily. So I'm going to try to show it for you here. Sandy Landers, SS. You guys are having some good. All right. So, but I just wanted to say hi to you guys. I didn't pray. I got to do that too. Jeez. I'm trying to rush out for my date, obviously. So let me feel what the Lord wants us to talk about today. And you guys, Heavenly Father, just thank you so much for this teaching in this book about the killing of Uncle Sam, and giving us clear notes and evidence to show where the New World Order came from, how satanic it is, how much it's in the occult, and letting us really know what's been controlling our education system and our politicians and our media. And Lord, just thank you for exposing this to me personally and being able to understand this now, Lord, so I can know how to pray better and know how you might want to use me in the future. And I just pray that you continue to expose the elite criminals and the Illuminati and the cabal and the deep state. That Lord, you'll that time is up for the evil, as Mark Taylor would say, and what a glorious time for we get to see the Second American Revolution. And we just pray, Lord, that you will just make that come true. You'll heal this nation completely. You won't give up on us until your work is done here in a complete healing of this nation. And we want to be involved in this army of God, Lord, that you're gonna build to march on this world, to heal it worldwide, and to have the great awakening, not only here for the United States, because I know you love people everywhere. You love people in every city, every state, every country, every part of this world. And Lord, you're an amazing God, and we just thank you for allowing us to pray directly to you. Thank you for showing us, even through evil horse races in the evil industry sometimes, you'll use signs to show us what's going on. American Pharoah to have Mark Taylor release those prophecies, and now Justify wins because you're bringing justice to the United States right now. It's going to end up bringing justice throughout the world. Thank you, Lord. We pray for that, and we love you. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen. All right, guys, I'm sorry for almost forgetting to pray. Wow. Hello, blessed to teach, says Philip Pringle. Nice to see you. Sandy Landers, Lily Bell, Robin Russell. Have a nice evening, Rick. I appreciate it, guys. Give your joy to those who need it. I hear you. Mark Thompson's book, Trump Prophecies, a must read. Yeah, it's Mark Taylor, actually. Wellness Coach NH. It's Mark Taylor, and it's swordrescue.com. Great stuff you can get there. LordRescue.com. A lot of amens. Good night, all. Hey, all right. Good night. Love you too, guys. Mark Taylor and Mike Thompson. Is there another Mike Thompson? Maybe maybe there's another book that I messed up there. So maybe he was talking about Thompson. Mark Taylor and Mike Thompson. I haven't heard of Mike Thompson. Maybe I'll have to look at that. Right. All right, good night. Have fun. You guys, God bless you. Again, Justify wins. Justice is coming to this country. Justice is coming to this world. God's hand is healing this nation. It's going to be an amazing time, guys. And now we're learning more about where this New World Order come from. It's going to be fun to read and understand the New World Order we're taking down. Cueanon, June 9th. God bless you. Talk to you next time.